On 1 July 2002, the date the Rome Statute entered into force, a so-called ICC advance team composed of the first 5 members of the staff of the future ICC entered a completely empty office building in The Hague. Their aim was to start the build-up of the new World Court. Since then and up to today, significant progress, often enormous progress, has been achieved in the build-up of the ICC in all key areas, in the registry, in the office of the prosecutor, in presidency and in the chambers. And the court has grown from a small embryonic unit of 5 people to a new emerging international organization, a new world court, with a current staff of around 700, still growing at fast pace, maybe sometimes too fast. Indeed, we are now in the critical transition from the build-up of the court to more and more judicial proceedings. With regard to Uganda, warrants of arrest concerning 5 members of the Lord's Resistance Army were unsealed already in October 2005. The fact that these arrest warrants are not yet executed and that the 5 suspects are not yet in the custody of our court highlights the critical dependency of the ICC on effective cooperation, and I will come back to this. As for the Democratic Republic of Congo, the transfer to The Hague of 1 suspect, Thomas Lubanga Diallo, is significant. At the same time, it is obvious that there continue to be various problems and obstacles for the court. Indeed, even today, the ICC is still an imperfect construction site for more justice. In this regard, let me make a confession, this under the critical eyes of Philip Kirsch. In September 2003, when I was called to work at the court full-time, I did not know, actually I had no clue whatsoever, how difficult, how unbelievably difficult it would be to build up a new international organization, and then especially a complex one as the ICC, from scratch to 100% to full functioning. The idea of an international criminal court, as great as it may be, or the Rome Statute as such, is no guarantee whatsoever for progress or even success. Everything remains difficult, nothing, really nothing falls into place by itself. Every inch of progress needs hard work, needs sustained efforts. In my view, all the members of the court, from the presidency to the most junior law clerk, continue to face some fundamental questions. How will we manage to turn the ICC into a really functioning and effective institution? How will we cope with the limitations of this court and also with the challenges ahead? With these questions in mind, I would like to divide these remarks into 2 brief parts. First, let me recall some of the legal, factual, and other limitations which also in the future will have an impact, a limiting impact on the work of the ICC. Second, in light of these limitations, what are current challenges and perspectives of the court? I will end with some personal thoughts. Some important limitations. First, in order to understand this court, it is in my view necessary to be fully aware of the limited reach of the jurisdiction and admissibility regime of this court. This is a combination of, on the one hand, a quite conservative and state sovereignty-oriented system of jurisdiction based on the principle of territoriality and the active personality principle, combined with, on the other hand, an admissibility regime based on complementarity. The principle of complementarity, as provided for in particular in Article 17 of the statute, is the decisive basis of the entire ICC system. As you are aware, complementarity entails that judicial proceedings before the ICC are only admissible if and when states which normally would have jurisdiction are either unwilling or unable genuinely to exercise their jurisdiction. The Rome Statute, and this is an important point, recognizes the primacy of national prosecutions. It thus reaffirms state sovereignty and especially the sovereign and primary right of states to exercise criminal jurisdiction. This complex system apparently needs more time to be fully accepted and adhered by all concerned in order to develop its full potential. At the same time, the principle of complementarity creates a curious pair of conflicting forces and hence a dilemma for the court itself. If states generally discharge their primary duty to prosecute crimes, the court will not be given anything to do. It will have no cases. On the other hand, the court needs exemplary and successfully handled cases. Why? Well, because the international community and the state parties have the legitimate desire to see concrete evidence that the ICC is a meaningful and useful institution indeed. A second major limitation is the fact that the court is 100% dependent on effective criminal cooperation on the support of state parties. As the court generally has no executive powers whatsoever and no police of its own, it is totally dependent on full, effective and timely cooperation from state parties. As foreseen and planned by its founders, the court is characterized by the weakness, you may say structural weakness, that it does not have the competencies and means to enforce its own decisions. As already shown with regard to the principle of complementarity, also in this respect, it was the wish of the court's creators that state sovereignty should remain prevailing. A third, very grave limitation, this time on the factual side, is the enormous difficulty of carrying out investigations and collecting evidence regarding mass crimes, core crimes, committed in regions thousands of kilometers far away from the court, hardly accessible, unstable, unsafe. Carrying out investigations in Uganda, the Democratic Republic of Congo, and with regard to Darfur, where we have no access rights to Darfur, entails logistical and technical problems, unprecedented problems indeed, which no other prosecutor or court are faced with. Another grim reality is the notorious scarcity of financial and other resources available for investigations and other work of the court. Obviously, there are also other limitations and obstacles. As Sheriff Basuni has reminded us yesterday, realpolitik, so-called realpolitik, all what it implies, and states' interest will also in the future continue to be principal obstacles to the effectiveness of the ICC. In the struggle, endless struggle between power and the rule of law, further disappointments and setbacks seem probable. Steadfastness and the readiness to weather further difficulties and crises with determination will be indispensable. Major challenges. With regard to major challenges, let me highlight 3 ongoing tasks which are of a particular importance. First, and this concerns the court itself, the court must continue to consolidate its ongoing development into an efficient and professional international organization, and at the same time into a functioning and credibility is the key word, international court. It remains essential that the ICC continues to show through the way it conducts all its activities that it is purely a judicial, an objective, and neutral and non-political institution. Second, the prosecutor and his office as the driving force of the ICC bear a special responsibility, and David Crane has pointed to this morning. In this respect, let me share with you a saying which I have picked up from the young people, and there are many young people at our court. They say, and you can hear it quite often, quote, "The office of the prosecutor is the engine. Professional and effective investigations are the fuel for the entire court." In more legal terms, the Rome Statute and the ICC rules of procedure and evidence set up the legal framework for the office of the prosecutor. The prosecutor and his team are called upon to use this legal framework for, firstly, the sustained and ongoing build-up of an organization which is as efficacious as possible, and second, the equally sustained development of professional and efficient working methods with clear goals and priorities, in particular with regard to investigations, which are, I repeat, the fuel for this court. The efficiency of the work of the office of the prosecutor is indeed essential for the court as a whole. Without professional and efficient work and working methods, without an office of the prosecutor which effectively delivers, the ICC cannot function. Third, it is obvious that the court cannot be successful without active and steadfast support from state parties, not only in word, but more important in concrete deed. State parties must draw appropriate conclusions from the well-known fact that the court has no executive powers, no police, no armed forces, or other executive mechanisms. Consequently, state parties and the court must in the foreseeable future develop a new system of best practices of effective criminal cooperation, direct, flexible, without unnecessary bureaucracy, with a fast flow of information and supportive measures. This system must fully take into account that the ICC can be only as strong as the state parties make it. And this concerns in particular the unresolved question, fundamental question, about serving arrest warrants and transferring criminals to the Hague. It is obvious that the state parties and all forces who support the court cannot let down the court in respect of arrests by adopting an attitude, for example, along the lines, "We have given you the money for the first budget, now see yourselves how you get the perpetrators before your court." This will not work. One must hope that this is clear to all concerned. In the former Yugoslavia, NATO and coalition forces have made most arrests for the International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia. With regard to Rwanda, most arrests have been made by neighboring states. Likewise, state parties and Security Council members Those who have given us the Darfur situation, not exactly on a silver plate, must now find ways and means of supporting the ICC with regard to the decisive question of arrests and transfers to The Hague. Currently, there are 5 arrest warrants confirmed by pre-trial chamber 2 with regard to suspects from Uganda. It remains unclear at this point in time whether and when these arrest warrants will be executed, and this is obviously not good. Let me conclude with some personal thoughts. For somebody who is an active ICC judge and at the same time a German national, it is indeed a very special experience to participate in a conference on the judgment at Nuremberg 60 years ago. Needless to repeat, to state again, without the International Military Tribunal of Nuremberg, there would be no ICC. Like others, I believe that Nuremberg was in essence an American creation that resulted in a giant step forward for the entire world, and this essentially the result of the great vision of Robert Jackson. I feel privileged that during the ICC process in the last decade, I had the chance to become acquainted with and even befriended with 3 outstanding American jurists, and you know them all: Henry King, Benjamin Ferencz, and Whitney Harris. As during the Rome Conference and ever since then, their principled attitude and their commitment to continue to be an invaluable source of encouragement and inspiration indeed for so many, and also for me personally. Therefore, if I look at Nuremberg, if I look at the judgment at Nuremberg, if I look at the distinguished former Nuremberg prosecutors present in this conference, and if I look at the constitutional principles which govern this great country, there is no doubt in my mind. The International Criminal Court, the novel institution to which I belong, embodies fundamental American values of accountability, equality, and justice. Finally, let me reaffirm one point which I have made already quite often. The last time in Nuremberg itself, on 19th July of last year, when Whitney Harris gave a gripping keynote address in historic courtroom 600 of the Justice Palace in Nuremberg. Then, on the occasion of the opening of the trial of the major German war criminals. And the point is, the court needs the support of the United States of America. This country, which time and again has had a decisive role in bringing about the fall of tyranny, in re-establishing the rule of law, or, in the words of Whitney, in putting tyranny on trial. Especially here at this conference on the judgment of Nuremberg, I need not to say more. It remains our hope that also the US government will eventually make its peace with the ICC, to which Americans have contributed so much, and this of course includes David Jaffer and Bill Pace. The court needs American support, morally, politically, materially, and in so many other ways. It also needs American prosecutors and other US staff working for the court. It also remains our hope that one day the judges may have an American colleague on the bench, maybe somebody with the stature of Robert Jackson, whom they may elect as the first American president of the International Criminal Court. This day must come. It will. Thank you very much.